Well, thank you very much for turning up. A very nice visual audience that are very, very interested, hardcore enterprise streaming people. What we're going to talk about this afternoon is the cost savings that streaming brings to an enterprise. And what we've seen over the last few years is with the acceptance of video can actually be delivered over a corporate network, and with the acceptance of video generally as a communications medium, how that has started to impact on the training and the communications sector within the corporate space. Very much now accepted across all devices as a way of communicating in the consumer world. Staff are now starting to expect a lot more information from the organisations. But more importantly than that, companies are starting to realise the cost benefits that they can get from streaming media to their corporate network, but also the value that brings in being able to keep companies' staff in touch with what's going on within the organisation across time zones, across disparate organisation offices, and with staff that are often working from home and small offices across the enterprise. So what I'd like to do is invite Chris Mitchell and Jake Ward to talk about their experiences with their customers and give us some information about some of the projects that they've been working on. And I've been asked a number of questions yesterday and this morning about the presentation, so I would give a presentation a bit later on about the infrastructure challenges that some of the organisations we've worked with have faced, and how we've been able to help them overcome some of those challenges. So, Chris, if you'd like to start.
So hi, good afternoon. Let's see if I can just find my presentation. Okay, so I'm the Regional Director for Delivery with On24. We're an American-based company, but we're very global, and we're probably the largest dedicated webcasting provider in the world. But what I'd really like to concentrate on today is virtual events, and talk a little bit about how webcasting and streaming fits inside virtual events for our corporate audience. We've got a quick video that I want to show you, which unfortunately I can't play from the PowerPoint presentation, but I'll run it from here.
I think when most people talk about virtual, what they have in mind is a virtual trade show.
It's interesting how the decision to go virtual has evolved a little bit over the last couple years.
Nowadays, the game is no longer just to replicate a live day at a trade show.
So we've taken that virtual briefing center concept and we've said, hey, you know what, this could be a virtual sales resource center. This could be a virtual product training center.
Wait a minute, actually this thing is really a next generation content portal. If you want to replicate hospitals, courthouses, we've done those.
I'm trying to use it to reach my partner community. I'm trying to use it to launch products more globally.
What they're able to create is a more enduring user experience, one that's more engaging, aesthetically rich.
Everybody can publish white papers and have them as links on their website, but that's low fidelity content. So virtual events have to have high fidelity content.
If you don't have the ability to deliver the content in a compelling and rich way, you're going to lose people.
One of the things we're starting to talk about is events in the cloud. In social webcasting, users, attendees can customize their own experience. I can imagine doing career fairs with social webcasting as part of a virtual event. The social webcast is the job posting in a much richer way. Not only am I able to communicate in a very high fidelity way, but my audience can communicate back with me.
And by virtue of that, you're getting more data back about who these people are.
It's very comprehensive data.
So that the data is seamlessly flowing back to whatever CRM you've set up to receive it.
It's a two-way broadcast channel.
Targeted one message portal that's got a new aesthetic.
One-click access, it's simple, it's easy to use, and it's accessible. That's where audience experience starts.
Okay, so hopefully that gives you a quick flavour for what I mean when I'm talking about virtual events. I think the first thing to say is what are they not? We're not talking about Second Life, we're not talking about augmented reality. What we're talking about is events online. Okay, and I think one of the key messages that was mentioned in that video was next generation content portal, because that's really what we're talking about, is a way in which we can provide solutions to clients where they can gather all of their content and provide easy access to it in a very accessible way. Very, very customizable, lots and lots of different uses for them. Some of those you sort of saw in there. Careers fairs, for example, was mentioned in the video. We ran a careers fair this year. In fact, we ran 2 of them for a client in Hungary this year. And over 3 days, online, there was no physical event, it was totally an online event, and over 3 days we had nearly 20,000 unique visitors. Over 100,000 documents were downloaded from the careers fair. And that sort of footfall is huge. So you can imagine the type of return that the clients are getting back on something like that. Networking. Obviously, we're not looking to normally replace all face-to-face, because I wouldn't be here today if we were. That's very much not what we're talking about. Networking is a very important aspect of it, and you get that obviously in buckets when you're at an event like this, but also it's an important part of what we do online. It's all about customer engagement, client engagement, whether it's an internal audience we're talking about, whether it's an external audience we're talking about. You need to provide high levels of engagement, interaction, and the ability for them to network. Scalability. I talked about the careers fair just now, and again, the sort of audience sizes that we can get through these events are enormous. Now again, with webcasting, which is one area of content that we drive through these virtual events, the sorts of scale that we're talking about for attendees is now running into the thousands, if not tens of thousands. Now we start to talk about a large webcasting live streaming event being 2,500 live simultaneous attendees. That's where we start to talk about a large event. But I mentioned also a fact that we're not looking to replace the physical. It's very, very important having the physical element to it. So hybrid events. By hybrid, we're talking about events that are both physical and online. So for example, here, we've got the camera at the back, we're being filmed at the moment. We could very easily take that to a live stream, and as well as the audience here in the room, we could have hundreds, thousands of people watching online as well. So that's what we're talking about with a hybrid event, where we're both physical and virtual. Nancy Duarte, who wrote the Slideology book, talked about 90 hours of effort going into a 30-slide, 1-hour presentation. Okay? If you're going to put that much effort into a presentation, you better make it good, you better make it engaging, and you better make sure you've got an audience for it. Okay? If you're at a physical audience, the size of the attendance is limited. The life of the attendance is limited. Taking it online, we're spreading our reach geographically, we're spreading our reach in numbers, but we're also, importantly, extending the life of that presentation as well. So we can constantly keep coming back to it, and we're driving a return on the investment of that presentation for however long we want to host it online, and for however long we want to drive an audience to it. When you're putting these presentations together, these virtual environments together, you still can't get away from the fact that it's got to be engaging content, and I probably don't need to tell any of you here how important video is to all of that as well. Okay, so it's about good content, it's about engaging content, but also about the ability to interact. So engagement is a very, very key term, and again, it was mentioned in the video a number of times. So once you've got the content there, once you've got the interest there with the audience, you have to give them the ability to interact with you. At the end of these presentations, there'll be a Q&A session. Hopefully there'll be some questions in that. Again, it's giving you the chance to interact and find out and answer what your particular needs are, what you're looking to achieve from this presentation. A couple of quick case studies then. Sodexo management training. Sodexo have around about 4,500 managers that they need to put through training each year. They were getting around about 50% engagement, apparently. Once they went to this virtual environment and we set up this online training centre for them through this virtual online solution, as you can see there, we had over 90% registration of their management, over 9,000 webcasts viewed, in the thousands of peer-to-peer communications, that's where managers who are geographically dispersed around the globe have the opportunity to talk to each other. 3,000 scheduled chat sessions, 50,000 documents viewed, as well as increasing the engagement and increasing the levels of interaction. The side effect of that was just that little $1.4 million cost saving. So as well as the huge cost saving that you're making, you're actually making it more efficient as well. VMware, again, what they were looking to do was recruit new customers, so slightly different case study. But again, I think some of the interesting things here, this was a show environment, but the live keynotes presentation were simultaneously translated into 3 different languages and delivered to nearly 3,000 attendees. Okay. It'd be nice if we could have had 3,000 attendees to the keynote presentation at Streaming Media. That's a pretty good attendee rate. Okay, over 10,000 webcasts viewed. And I think also interestingly with this one as well was they looked to get the engagement of professional bloggers to increase chat participation during the show as well. So again, you've got a couple of different areas there. You're looking at social media integration to drive target audience to our events, but also to drive interaction and participation during the event as well. And I'll cover a little bit more about that shortly. Autodesk, they set up a training centre as well for their partners. And this particular training centre replaced a series of 20 separate online learning classes. So they had traditional e-learning online. They did away with that and they replaced it with this. Over 3,000 webcasts viewed. Average training visit length, over 4 hours. So they're spending a long time in this environment as well during the day or two that it might have been open for a live session. And again, that's not including visits afterward once it's gone on demand. And again, what I wanted to sort of highlight on this one is the fact that it's all integrated with Autodesk's LMS system. I'm not sure which LMS system was used in that example, but again, it's very easy for us to integrate into learning management systems, as well as also CRMs, reporting systems as well. And again, I'll come on to the analytics side of it in a second. So really what we're talking about with On24 is a very open and scalable solution for both internal and external communications. But we allow a lot of integration. We've adopted this widget mentality. So within our webcasts, within our virtual environments, we have widgets which will allow different functionality. And particularly here we're talking about the social media aspect. So Twitter, for example. Prior to the event actually happening, we'll be talking to our clients about them setting up their social media campaigns and twittering about the event. Tweeting, whichever way you want to go. But once you're in the event itself, within your webcast, you'll open up your Twitter widget and you can simultaneously be tweeting about what's happening in the event. If you're attending an event that's on all day, you're going to carry on with everything else that's going on. Okay, so we give you that ability to extend your social media and your social networking activities whilst you're in the environment. And if it's a webcast you're attending, you've got the widget inside the webcast. You come out of that into the virtual environment, you've got the same widget available in there as well. We're also driving open API architecture for our clients to develop their own widgets. And we have a life cycle in terms of turning around and updating widgets of around about 6 weeks. And that's every 6 weeks as well. Source independence. What's really important as well is when we're taking this ability to our clients, we need to offer them every type of event that they want to do, whether it be audio, whether it be video, and if it's video, we're talking about webcam events, we're talking about video conferencing over VCU. So whatever they're used to using, and if they want to take that up to a professional video setup, then we'll take all of that feed and feed that into our live events. So you're looking at source independence. So that's just really emphasising that. Location independence. Again, we've talked about the geographically dispersed element of what we do, but also importantly, it's taking it inside the corporate networks, inside the firewall. Okay, and obviously Chris is going to be talking a bit more about the whole peer-to-peer side of things as well, but we're doing a lot of internal unicast replication events. We're doing a lot of peer-to-peer type events. So we're working with our clients to integrate what we're doing internally behind the firewall with them to really efficiently improve the method of disseminating the information to them. We did recently a marketing event for a a pharmaceutical company, although I say it was a marketing event, it was actually for all of their marketing presidents and senior directors around the world, and they have about 300 of these. And in the past, they've done this offline, flown all 300 to a physical location, and they've had a week on site at a particular location. Hugely expensive way to do business. What they did this year for the first time was they had 50 attendees in London. All other 250 of them attended online through a virtual briefing centre. They were able to access the environment in advance to get their pre-reading materials, and then we had 2 live days. And throughout those 2 live days, we were running a series of live video webcasts, which then were immediately turned around for archive for viewing in other regions as well. And then when they had viewed those, we'd then do live Q&A sessions for it. So throughout the 2 days, there were, I think it was about 30-odd live webcasts that were running to the different regions around the world. The feedback from that was the most successful marketing week that they'd ever run. It's the first time they'd done it online. And again, on top of that, saved them a lot of money. Device independence. Mobile devices are getting so important. Most of you are on your mobile devices now. I can see you've got the iPad at the front here. All of our webcasts can now be delivered onto mobile devices and across different device types, whether it be iPad, whether it be iPhone, whether it be Android. So they'll all take our webcasts onto those mobile devices, and we'll streamline them to be delivered in the most efficient way to those devices. Okay, so there's just a couple of shots sort of up there. And finally, in the reporting and analytics as well, which provides a sort of final part of this overall solution. And with the reporting side of it, very, very detailed reporting. You're looking at every element, every activity that takes place during the webcast, during the virtual environment, is captured and reportable. So we provide real-time links for you to pull out your own reporting, but we'll also integrate into your own solutions as well. Okay, and if you're using a solution that doesn't have open APIs, then we can pull it out any other way as well and provide XML feeds. There's a salesy slide. On24 is your one-stop provider for all virtual event needs. So I'm sure others will have an opinion on that as well in a second, but certainly that's our opinion. Okay. At this point, I'd like to hand over back to you, Chris.
Okay, thanks. We'll have some time at the end to ask questions then. So if I could ask Jake Ward from Group Gecko to give his presentation. Like On24, Group Gecko have been involved in the streaming industry for a long time. We've done very, very many corporate events, and I'm sure Jake will share some exciting insights for us.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know us, we are a streaming solutions provider. We've been going for about 11, 12 years. And I actually want to talk about the potential pitfalls of doing this and how, if you overcome them, what the actual upside can be for an organisation, how those metrics work. So 3 things I wanted to talk about was delivery, quality of content, and where to deliver. And I think delivery is one of those things where people really should give this serious consideration. And I know Chris is going to talk about how you deliver internally, but it's like a fragile package. If you get this wrong and you're delivering to the audience, you get one chance at this to get it right. And if you get it wrong, it can go disastrously wrong, and this will not be done for several years within an organisation because the nervousness around it is simply too great. So you have to treat this absolutely seriously and really look at, particularly on internal webcasts, what structure you have, what network you have, and how you solve those inherent problems that are in every customer location. So there's always that. There's always also the other big unspoken issue that people don't want to talk about, and that's their own IT departments. Their own IT department, your own IT department will get in the way of very good communications ideas, and I can already see people nodding, because they need to protect the network, and particularly when network is absolutely critical, things like financial services, they will constantly protect the network first, and communications comes somewhere down a long list of needs. So the ability to come in with, and there are various solutions out there, Chris is going to talk about OptiShape, with solutions that not bypass IT, but are very easy for IT to buy into, can really deliver huge benefits. I also want to talk about quality of content, and also about how you've got to understand what you're up against in the way of content. If you look in this country, the big content provider is the iPlayer and the BBC. So to be honest, if I'm going to watch video online, that's my common language. You know, the average user, what they watch is actually the iPlayer, and so why should your experience be inferior to that? And that's a big goal to set. You know, the BBC, publicly funded, lots of money to spend on that user interface. You really have to look at that quality of content, because you're after something that reflects the brand, is very high quality, and is very easy to access, and has integrity. You're up against things like question time, things that have weight, things that have purpose. And so you need to look at that content and not make sure it's just another bit of corporate spiel. It needs to be something which, for the 20 minutes people are investing in it, gives them something back, gives them something they understand. But if you get this right, you can have major benefits. So, and I apologise for most of my examples will be slightly anonymous, because I'm allowed to talk about the numbers and the figures but not identify the company involved. So I did a broadcast recently with the CEO and a chairman, internal broadcast to staff around the world from our studio in London. This was viewed by more staff in 2 days than the CEO and chairman meet all year. So just think about that and these guys travel a lot. I think the CEO last year did 85 days of travelling to different offices around the world. Think about the scale of how many people then went and watched with this video. The actual content of the session was them answering about 20 questions from staff, and this was purely driven by staff questions, and that was again picked up through their own kind of social media, their own networking capabilities in-house, an email address where you could send an anonymous question to. But by answering those 20 questions, they actually answered 80% of all the questions that came in, because staff in this case have similar issues around the organisation, and there's very few questions that people are asking that are very specific and local to them. And the trick with this to close the loop is they also, those 20% of questions that don't get asked, they are told if you submit a question, you will have a response from the senior leadership team. So you will have people who get back to you, and that might be the head of finance if it's a finance question, it might be the chief exec if it's a strategic question, and you know, not necessarily saying these guys write all these answers, the comms team write a lot of them, but it's a personal response signed off by them and a response that they recognise. So what does this mean internally? What does this mean for the audience and what they get out of this? This means that, and this is very important when it comes to metrics, we saw a load of metrics, and I've got a load of numbers up there, which is always a sin, saying, you know, so many people watched, we got this many questions coming in. What did it actually change? And how it changes opinion is absolutely key on this. So what this example actually changed was surveying people before and surveying people after. They asked for people's scale from 1 to 10 on how much they understood the strategic direction, the strategy of the company, and their general satisfaction with the company. A half-hour programme moved those, on a scale of 1 to 10, 2 points into the positive on average. And that's what's important. I can say 40,000 people watched it, that would be great. If none of them were actually listening or absorbed any of that information, that's of little use to me. And I think where we need to go with the metrics on these things is numbers are always a good place to start, but we actually need to see what we're changing through what we're doing. And that's only and that may be something as basic as surveying, about having questionnaires, about actually asking staff and stakeholders what you do. And going back to a point Chris makes, this is the final point I want to make, it's about the ability to take the media wherever your audiences want to see that media, however they want to see it. And that is also about letting go slightly, letting them download content. You know, you've got to look at viewing the media anywhere, but you've also got to guard against those security breaches and things that you don't want in the public domain. And you have to make an editorial choice about what should stay within an organisation or be released to a limited number of stakeholders, and what can go without an organisation. It's amazing. One organisation I know who had some general briefings. The market had been briefed in exactly the same way, so they were very casual about who got to saw the content. Simply allowed people to download them as podcasts and vodcasts. Added 20% to their audience just because people went, I don't have time for this at work, I'll download it and watch it on the train. And added a significant, we're talking thousands of people who'd actually seen and absorbed these messages. And being able to then find that out, do some research, talk to the staff and the stakeholders and understand what went on there, meant they could actually prove their RMI rather than just having a number. And I think the next few years is where we'll see us going from the numbers and the sophisticated information we get, like viewing times and where people drop off and things like that, and actually using this information in collaboration with the changes we have made in an organisation to actually move this forward. And that is it. I'll hand back to Chris.
Well, thanks. Okay, I've got an interesting challenge. I've been asked to cover some of the technology and at the same time make it relevant to a couple of the projects and some of the clients that we've worked with specifically. So I'm hoping mine's not been preloaded. So basically what Oddshape have done is introduce a new product called Infinite Enterprise, which is based on our streaming solutions project, which is internet-based, which is called Infinite HD. And we've done a number of projects which are global webcasts for some very large organisations. And then we had an opportunity to really understand what was going on with the internet, what people were trying to achieve. And what we found was that people were looking to engage wider audiences, people were looking to deliver much higher quality, and they were also trying to ensure that they were able to do it in a much more efficient and more timely way. But there was this dichotomy that there was this happy coincidence that we were building a solution that was delivering over UDP, not necessarily delivering over a TCP-based protocol, which enabled us to make the use of the internet very, very much more efficient. This kind of CDN network strategy that we had a very interesting side effect for us. If you can imagine in the current situation, you've got an organisation that's running streaming media into their business. What generally tends to happen is each user connects to every stream, and as they connect, they use up more and more and more of the corporate connectivity until eventually falls over. The firewall becomes precisely that. It stops the infrastructure, it stops working, you get gridlocked on the network, and you have too many unicast streams coming in, pulling streams off the land. Which is when you get phrases from your CTO saying, you want to put video on my network? It's not going to happen. So what we did was invented a technology, created a technology that was able to multicast on the internet. By being able to do that, we're also able to work within sort of this internet world of a raft of unreliable resources. We're able to actually bring that in spades, the benefits that we could bring in spades into a corporate environment where you have a managed network, you have managed resources, you know what the capabilities of each of the sites are, you know what your provisioning is for your remote workers and for your smaller offices, and maybe you've got some satellite bases that are drilling for oil, or people that are doing exploration work or stuff all over in remote locations around the world. And so by being able to provision a solution that worked both within a small organisation network which maybe has multiple standalone offices, or maybe it has multiple offices that are tethered with very complex network infrastructure, large wide area LANs, or organisations that are split globally, have multiple segments, multiple network segments, and are running with multiple service providers. By being able to join all of these together into a single homogeneous unit, you're able to communicate within your organisation in a very, very cheap and very efficient way. I was asked by a couple of people yesterday to cover our sort of forward error correction tools and what we've been doing there to make the service more reliable and more efficient. I'm not going to go through that with you today because the guys that asked me to put that in are not here, but essentially our system is built on a very robust, very resilient UDP-based forward error corrected stream transport layer. I'm more than happy to sort of talk about that with anybody if you want to afterwards. However, what's very important to understand with what we've done within Octoshape is our stream technology works on the open internet. But when it comes in and hits your corporate LAN, if there's a multicast network in place, we can work into that multicast network and actually provide streams through that infrastructure to each of your workers, each of your staff. And with one of the clients we worked with recently, they were seeing in excess of 66 users connecting to a single stream. Now that 66-to-1 ratio enables them to deliver much higher bandwidth broadcast into their corporate offices now, because they're not using up all of the connectivity that they have going out to their corporate, going out to the internet on their LAN. What we've also been able to do, where organisations are starting to use AMT, automatic multicast tunnelling, where you have satellite or ancillary offices that are using AMT-enabled routers, we're able to simulate multicast and switch on that AMT throughout the network, which brings another layer of multicasting capability into those organisations and into those remote offices. So you can have 30, 40 people in a remote office, or 12 or 15 people in a salon or a shop office in sort of any part of the country or any part of the world, that's actually then receiving a multicast stream coming through from your CDN connectivity. And because all of this is happening in the cloud, we're not only delivering simulated multicast from the internet, but we're also delivering genuine native multicast and AMT into the corporate LAN as well. So what we actually found is that by bringing in a technology that was designed to leverage the worst of the unreliable network infrastructure, which is the internet, into a corporate environment, you actually manage to get the very best elements of that managed network infrastructure to work very, very much more efficiently than anyone thought it was possible to do. And we've seen this with some of the projects that we've worked on recently with Groovy Gecko and On24, where the end user, the client, has been so impressed with what they're able to do now with their own corporate LAN that they've actually rethought their own internal communication strategy and are changing quite significantly their plans for the future, which is quite useful. So some of the things that one client had a plan recently where they were going to roll out our technology. They had all big ideas of what it was going to be required, what was going to be required to do that. They had a sysadmin plan, they had infrastructure plans, they had communications plans, they had all kinds of different things to how this project was going to have to be managed to be able to roll out this infrastructure, because they were working on the old model where these things are quite costly. You have to put infrastructure in place in all of the offices and spread it all around your global enterprise and spend many, many hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to make that happen. But what they realised was that by working with a solution that was web-based and was able to then integrate to their internal LAN, that they could cancel their sysadmin rollout cost because there was little or no risk. The infrastructure management side of things was all taken off because they had no infrastructure to install and manage, so again, there was limited risk. The open platform allowed them to work with their conference service providers in the way that they work with their conference service providers today, and so there was no logistics, there was no procurement issues, and there was no changing of infrastructure. So the bottom line for particularly one of the clients we were talking about or intimating about just now is there was no cost of deployment, no impact to their existing resources, no impact on resources, no admin or logistics cost, and it gives them time. By being able to put a system in place that enables you to use your infrastructure that you have today and use it efficiently, it buys you time to decide whether you want to deploy full native multicast across your own internal LAN, whether you want to work with a system that's already that's available today, or whether you want to sort of implement that over a period of time and how monitor how it works before you start spending serious amounts of cash. But also you can work with the people you work with today, and you can effectively use today's workflows within a more stable and efficient environment. And in terms of whether or not this is real, these are some of the comments that we've had from clients just in the last couple of weeks. And for us, it's a significant accolade to actually get responses within minutes of an event where people who were a little bit sceptical coming back saying, this event could not have happened on our network had we not worked with you guys. And we were very pleased that one person was particularly sceptical about what we were trying to achieve, actually came back and said, actually you guys do exactly what it says on the tin. Thank you very much. We have a few minutes if anyone has any questions.
I have a question for our report. What would you say, what is the normal decision-making tree in webcasting when it comes to service or setting up your platform? How would you advise people?
My first question, or my first answer to about setting up your own platform, it would depend on obviously the type of client we were talking to and who you are as an organisation. But I think my main response would be why. There are a lot of big solutions providers out there currently now. We, for example, have a huge channel capability. A large portion of what we do is through channel, so working with agencies, vendors, suppliers, production companies, whatever they may be, publishers, for example, who white label what we do, take and build what we do themselves and sell that full service on. So they're really replicating the full service side of our business just using our platforms already. I don't think there's another self-service platform for webcasting and virtual event that rivals what On24 are currently doing. It is a huge part of our business, and some of the biggest names in the world in this space are actually white labelling On24 when it comes to what they call large events, which they can't manage.
So you would say that the size of the event is very important?
Yes. In a lot of respects. I mean, obviously, whenever you're talking to a corporate client, the first thing that I would talk to them is, do you really want webcasting? Once you've established the requirement for webcasting, and by that I mean as opposed to web meeting type technology or any of the other sorts of solutions that are out there. Once you've established that they do want to use webcasting, the next most important thing, well, do you need video? Do you really need video? And it's all about establishing their need. What are they trying to achieve? What are their goals? What are their objectives in the communication they've got to deliver? Once you've got to the bottom of all of that, then really for webcasting, you are looking at larger type of events than you would have for a web meeting type solution. So you're looking at sort of 50 attendees upwards. So then you're looking at the levels of interaction as well that are going to take place. And as I said when we were talking before, there are a lot of providers out there who might have, for example, started in the web meeting space that have then pushed out using the same technology platform into webcasting. But their platforms really struggle when you start to get to sort of 250, 300 type audience size. And that's why I sort of differentiated, what we're doing. I mean, we've got twin data centers that are completely hot redundancy for failover. We have full AMV path redundancy, but we also have triple CDN redundancy, all permanently in place. So we don't even flag internally that it's a large event until we have at least 2,000 live attendees. When we do flag it as a large event, that's not because we're getting anywhere near capacity. It's purely so that we can look at how many large events do we have going on at the same time globally. So that's the difference between looking at a true webcasting, robust, scalable platform and talking to either some of the small local vendors that you get that have built up and have developed their own platform, or those that have branched into webcasting from other platform types and actually don't have the right platform in place to deliver. So hopefully that answers.
Any more questions? And one of the things that I was interested in with what you were saying, Jake, I mean, obviously you've been streaming for corporates for a long time. What's the decision process that you've had with particularly some of the IT side of things, and you know the discussions you have with marketing, IT, communications, IT, finance, IT?
As I said in my presentation, there's always a tension there. I once sat in on a meeting with a government organisation who shall remain nameless, with the head of marketing and the head of IT, who asked me to come in and find a solution between the two of them. They both had different demands. They sat there and talked at each other for 10 minutes, and I sat them both down and said, you're both basically saying exactly the same thing, you just don't understand each other. And that is it's a constant negotiation. But I think with things like Octoshape, you know, where you bypass as much of the IT, the trick is with IT is they're always after protecting the network. That is their fundamental job, to make sure things continue to run. And the easier you make for them to accept technology, I think we've all found this, the easier it makes the decision process for marketing, because otherwise marketing have a fight on their hands where they have to impose their will on IT. And constantly the discussion is, how can we make this as painless as possible? So as you were saying, you know, with things like Octoshape, there's no real deployment there, there's no hardware going in. You want to look for those solutions where it's a very simple, straightforward thing, and play to the network strengths as well. Sometimes you find odd quirks of corporate networks where you think, actually, what we do is we can't deploy something like Octoshape, can't get the buy-in, but we have a core audience of 700 or 800 in institutions externally or internally who can actually see this. We know we can give them a good service, so pitch it at them first. Do the proof of concept, get the buy-in, and then as soon as you've got the buy-in at a higher level and you show a return on investment, then you have something to go back to IT with and go, we need to deploy this further, because look at the returns we will get if we can deploy it throughout the network.
Okay, well, I mean, any more questions? Has anyone got any challenges or faced any, does what we've been talking about resonate with anyone in terms of your challenges with IT or your challenges within communications, of being able to understand or plan what you want to do next with your infrastructure, with your corporate communications?
Oh, it looks like everybody's fine, we'll go.
Okay. All right, well, I hope the presentations were okay for you, and if you've got any questions afterwards, then please feel free to come and ask us. Thanks very much.
I do have a bunch of books, actually, which is the Dummy's Guide to Virtual Events as well, which I'll stick on the table if anyone wants a copy.
Take one away. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Inspiring stuff. Can you use it next?
Thank you very much. It's about a year and a half. It's about a year out of date.